quotation mark? When we think about a quotation mark, when do we use that, Bayan? When someone's talking, right? So it is going to go before and after a direct quote. Okay? So we use quotation marks when we are citing specific evidence from a text, right? Think of your think questions, and when we do think questions, we have our quotation, we state what it is, we have our quotation at the end, and then we cite it, right? So it's before and after a direct quote. It's also when somebody is talking, when during dialogue, right? We call that dialogue in writing. Okay. Now, when we were talking about direct quotes before, or direct address, one with our commas and things, this is where a lot of people, we talked about, this here. So we have our quotation marks. So let's say I said, oh goodness, the best gift of all, said Mrs. Simpson. Okay, so here, of course, we have our comma inside, but if I said, what was the best gift of all? Said Mrs. Simpson. Here I have my quotes. Here I have my quotes. What would go here? What was the best gift of all? What type of sentence is that? What am I, yes?
A question mark?
It's a question mark, right? So because I'm asking a question, so that question mark goes inside the quotation, okay? Said Mrs. Simpson, then of course the period would go at the end. The punctuation would go inside because it needs to reference what was just said, okay? If it was an exclamation, and I was excited about something, an exclamation mark, a question mark and an exclamation mark go inside that quotation, okay? Questions about that? Pretty simple, right? Another way that you would, or another reason you would use quotation marks is for titles of a short story, an essay, a poem, a song, magazine, a newspaper article, or a book chapter. Okay? So quotations would go around all of those things. So write that down. Titles of a short story, an essay, a poem, song, magazine, newspaper, article, or a book chapter. Okay? Not necessarily a book title, that would be underlined, right? But a book chapter is like a sub part of that book. Okay? Then we have these things called italics. When do we use italics? And that's kind of more when we're typing. You don't necessarily do that when you're writing, right? When you're printing or cursive. But you can use an italics. Oops. Let's see here. For a title of a book. a newspaper, not a newspaper article, a newspaper, like the Chicago Tribune, and then if we had like a story in the Chicago Tribune, that would be a newspaper article, we would put quotations around. Let's see, newspaper, what else? Or musical work? Or a magazine, the title of a magazine. Okay? So, these are all things that, you know what an italics is, right? It's kind of slanted. So if I wrote, maybe if I was typing this, the Lord of the Flies, I don't know, kind of at a slant. All right, it's hard to write. You don't write with an italics, you just type it. So it kind of stands out. That's kind of the purpose behind it. Okay, make sense? It's kind of simple, the italics. Kind of similar to what you could do for underlining, right? We kind of know that titles of the books, we underline those. So instead of underlining, you could italicize it. Okay, questions on that? All right, let's open up